Good afternoon. It's Thursday, January 19th. We're Senate Institutions, and we're going to continue our conversation with Joe Asia on capital projects. And then when he's through, he's going to take us on a little field trip and show us a few spaces that we have around the Capitol complex. So, Mr. Asia, you're up.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Joe, for the record, Joe Asia of BGS. Good, it's actually good. Hopefully these are less expensive projects. I'm ready. Secure services, physical secure recovery residence. That is the one that places the Middlesex properties, trailers in Middlesex. It's going to the old Woodside site, and that should be occupied in April. Right now, house was there yesterday, so we thought it was quite nice. So we did the finishes and hopefully with all the material they're in, so now it's just a matter of finishes and stuff like that getting their way out.
Does someone have their volume?
No, there's a slide.
And
This
an
one's
opportunity to
red.
ask where it was me, where we are. Okay.
Oh, sorry,
Excuse
under
me.
section 3, agency human services. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Any questions on that? So, up next is the women's pressure facility. So that this has been in the works since 2017. One was coming out of the house for us to do a study and develop a plan. We had the Justice Reinvestment in 2020. That also put some money. We started the study. We are now on, I think it's phase 2 of a study, and what we did last year, so the year before on the study, was to assess our existing facilities to look at what is truly needed, both condition-wise and occupancy. And what came out of that report was basically where there were 5 different options. One was, well, the population isn't that great. Why not one large facility centrally located roughly in the state? Reasons why to do it, reasons why not to do it, and what was settled on eventually was known as option C, which was really looking for a new separate women's facility and reentry facility, and then doing something with the men's. And what that did with the men's is probably with the population the likes of that was to go to St. Albans area for a new men's facility, adding the living unit that was never constructed down in Springfield, that Southern State Correctional Facility, and also providing some programming down at the Springfield facility. And then possible additional renovations with the outlook at the other facilities. It wasn't a perfect scenario, but that's sort of where we went with that one in our request for proposal to go out on the street and say, this is sort of what we want, but what we Corrections is really looking for is this. And this is what they're working on right now. And so they are looking at basically just a women's facility and a reentry facility, and what's the correct numbers for how many people should be in the facility. It's not about beds, because with beds you need swing space. So if there's an issue going on in the living room, so you need to separate individuals. It's about being able to move them over to this bed. So bed count and population are different, even though they're somewhat the same. And then also at that point in time was to look at, well, if it's the reentry facilities should be around businesses that could handle whatever that number is going to be for a women's reentry facility. However, knowing we have land in St. Albans, could it fit there? But if it did go there, would that impact the men's facility being expanding there, or new construction going on. So that's sort of what they're looking at right now. And I want to say, end of February, we're due a report, or to draft a final report on that to say, this is really what we want and roughly where we should go.
Go ahead. Did you have a sort of question?
Is, this is obviously a huge, topic that's been going on for a long time. Are there copies of the studies on our website, or can they be?
They were presented last year, yes.
So if I go look on last year's, okay. And if you wouldn't mind pointing me to the most recent, most concise source, that would be wonderful.
We presented both studies, both in the House, Christian institutions, and here, Senate institutions. I forget the timeframe. HOK was the company, and it might be a search with HOK. If you can't find it, let me know so we can get you copies.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank you.
go ahead.
I was asked by a constituent to pursue a psychiatric hospital. I don't know if we've opened any facilities since the Waterbury one closed. Is that something that falls under this committee's jurisdiction or not?
It falls under AHS, not necessarily Department of Corrections, but we do have the psychiatric hospital in Berlin. So
So there's
That
a
was-
facility now?
yes, so once the flood took it all out, it was arranged to start getting these constructed. So Berlin was first in 65 plus years now when that was completed, it was operational. And now we also have new residents in Essex that's coming online also. And one in Essex, you have to be by court order in order to head up in there, and that's a 60-bed facility. I forget the number of people that would have in
Is it about the same?
Berlin.
I was told yesterday in our report that they expect to transfer 8.
Right, but I don't know the number, total number.
I'm not sure.
Houses in Berlin.
Coming into the SC facility.
Is there any indication of how that compares to the number of beds population that was in Waterbury?
That's a question for AHS.
Okay, thank you.
That I don't know.
No problem.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I'm sure we'll see them on the new Capitol bill, so we'll have them.
You know, real men.
Yeah,
That
we'll-
sounds good. Thank you.
We'll, we'll have a lot of new people that we're gonna get a chance to talk to.
Super.
Joe, has there been any more discussion, we've talked about in the past about future taking our out-of-state inmates back to Vermont? And we discussed it 6-7 years ago, but are we focusing at all on that? I know that's a big subject and I understand that.
Sort of. And the reason I say sort of is because of the condition of Chittenden and needing programming for women and reentry, it's really about getting them up first. But that's also why, under this study, we're looking at St. Albans property. If the women's facility was sited there, could that go there next? And if not, what about the Springfield facility? And then that would bring the inmates, incarcerated individuals back.
Because last I heard, we're under 200 out of state. I don't know how accurate that is, but at one time it was 400 or 500. So we're getting down there and it'd be nice to get back. But I know it's a big subject. We talked about it. The cost is a big factor when you start. And I know women's facility is a priority right now. It's terrible what their living conditions are. I hope we make some progress on that. We got to do something. That facility's never made for over 100 women.
Right.
It's busting at the seams. It's not good conditions.
Right.
And potentially thinking about siting the women's facility in St. Albans, and you're concerned about whether they're gonna expand the vets program project or not.
Right. Yeah,
Is it on the same piece of land, or just you're more worried about the, what it's gonna do, might do, the impact it might have on the community?
No, it's on the same piece of property that we're down. And so, it'd be logical that if we're going to expand the men's, that other than Springfield, who is permitted for another living unit, the next spot would be going to Springfield, going, well, we have land here, we could expand. So it's looking at that and going, well, here's a size that a women's facility would be. If we put it here, could expansions still take place? And through what corrections is looking at for the reentry, is St. Albans still the right location, or is it someplace else?
And they all like it. They all.
Yeah.
So you don't have 10 years getting a permit. Because most communities don't,
Right, right.
they don't want it. But St. Albans will welcome it tomorrow.
And Joe, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds here, and I know you won't let that happen. Where we own land in Windsor, the community's not in favor of having more state buildings there, or they'd like to find another purpose for that land. Have they done their duty as far as in their opinion?
There's been several studies that have gone over the past 2-3 years, and
They're not really saying about reusing those buildings. I mean,
right, you know, Windsor said, you know, they're done sort of being the correctional facility town. They've done their time. It's still state land. I don't know. It would be, you know, through Human Services and also here the legislature to maybe dictate that we already own the land. This would be a place to go. The buildings are, some of them are quite old and are good for storage. You know, when we used for a minimum maintenance facility, it wasn't that bad because they were using to store lawnmowers and stuff like that. They were going out in the community or parts of that. But if they were going to reuse it for, you know, if we sold the land and they used it for something else, a lot of them would probably take down some of those buildings also, but that's something that we have looked into.
thank you.
Anything else on the women's correctional facility? Statewide correctional facility life safety and security needs. This really is managed by Department of Corrections, but we do the work for them. So this is something where they have a life safety concern, literature point or something like that, as where they have a security issue. They would say they want this. Can you help us out? Then we use this pot of money to get that work done for them. I mean, it's like, it could be adding some fencing, it could be additional cameras, could be changing out the style of doors. In some instances that we had was with doors, there was an incident several years ago, 5+ now, I think, where the incarcerated individual tried to hang himself inside of a mop closet, basically. So it's changing those doors out now. So it's basically it's either open and or has a piece of plexiglass in there, so an officer can look in all the time. So stuff like that money is used for. DOC correctional facilities, ADA compliance. There was an incarcerated individual who was housed in 3 facilities, and that was at Monroe State Correctional Facility, Southern State Correctional Facility, and then at also Chittenden Regional Correctional Facility. I forget what impairment he had, but it was an issue. The Department of Justice got involved. They came through and did an inspection and said some of the things that you have here do not comply with the ADA. And even though they were built years ago, and in some areas have never been renovated, it's somewhat of a captive audience, and they can't go anywhere and use any of the facility or something like that. So this is, you should make these accommodations and changes. So we're going through, some of them are relatively easy. We have a vendor who provides our toilet paper holders, and like soap dispensers. When they come in, sometimes it's not put in the right place. So what we're doing is having to move those, sometimes inches, grab bars, some of the insulation under a sink or something like that hasn't been done, but we do have in Chittenden Correctional Facility, the holding cell is a concrete slab on the floor. It's a raised slab of 6 inches with a mattress on that. That's where somebody coming in who's taking out in there used to be housed, and right now DOJ is saying that that's not adequate to the ADA. It should be at a higher level. And there's also the showers and the shower that they could use, that corrections said, well, we had it in the year, we could use this shower, and they're saying, no, it's got to be in this area. So those are some of the things that we have to tackle and correct. It's only at those 3 facilities, because that's the only location that DOJ investigated because of where that inmate was. We will be assessing the other facilities as time allows and funded to make sure that we do get those. DOC correctional facilities, heating, ventilating, AC, air conditioning, so that's HVAC. It's programming, it's not design and design development. That came in at the last minute last year. It was concerned about not having air conditioning and airflow in our correctional facilities. Rutland Regional Correctional, or Marble Valley Correctional Facility does have air conditioning throughout. It was designed that way. Chittenden over the years has become air conditioned. Other than that, the other ones are spotty at best that have air conditioning. This is to investigate what that actual cost would be. We're down a few people, 6. And so we haven't gotten on that one yet, but it is out there to get out of the street and get somebody to assess this and give us some direction. That's it for human services. Under the building communities grants, this is handled out of our office. Rich Assistant Judy Bruno. And I really can't speak to it other than that. I know that she receives grants, requests out of these. There's a certain time period. She goes through them and feel like there's enough funding in certain needs to hand those grants out, but it's filling out the paperwork, the request, and then she turns those around and gets those grants out. Then under section 12, Department of Public Safety, this is funds that are given to the Department of Public Safety, and 3 of them is what, 2 of them are what we actually do in our office, and the 3rd one we have helped them out with. And so I'll go through those. Wilson Public Safety Facility, the new one going in on the south side of the interstate. Up Williston, they've been in cramped quarters for quite some time. Their building is starting to. It is. It's got some holes, and I think that knowing that this process is going on, it hasn't seen a lot of major maintenance put at it to keep it up. It's needed.
Busiest around
Time. It is. They have a lot of equipment, so their new facility is done.
Substantial completion should be in October. We're hoping for a move-in by the end of the calendar year.
Good. Parker Ride is gonna be good right next to it.
Yes.
It is.
So Joe, the 3.5 million, which I see in the second to last column, what is that exactly? That can't be for the whole project, can it?
No, it was not. This was the 3.5 million was in 23 was a request that we had to get us up to the new dollar level. We had spent time pre-COVID and then through COVID to downsize the facility, to right-size it for the dollars that we have and to meet public safety's needs. So we did some internal cuts. We cut off a wing to downsize a little bit more. And then we also did not construct the sort of the Marines garage in that, mainly cold storage, but it houses their seasonal stuff. So, the boats, the snow machines, the 4-wheelers and stuff like that. And that's, one comes in, one goes out over the years. And that 3.5 million was to get us to our estimate that we had at the time. With a construction manager going out to bid, it came in higher than we expected. And then there was another through the E-board, we got an additional 3.4 million to help us get to what that dollar limit was.
Thank you.
Next one up is the Middlesex renovation for the field station in Berlin. So what we're working on is during Williston, having those stocks out, that was under design. The Middlesex barracks was pretty run down also and needed some work. So the thought was there was a study done years ago where they should be relocated, because a lot of where they're located, Middlesex is right into the valley and everything else, but the other part of their area was more towards the east, northeast, and so they were looking to move in Berlin or a different location. The old library that we had, Berkeley Library Center built in Berlin, and we were at that point in time, just had it for storage and no reuse. And so we looked at that and additional property of this could be maybe a temporary fill. We had 3.7 million, I believe. I think that's what it was to start a temporary facility, to get them out of Middlesex, to hold them over, to purchase more land and get them a new facility. Everything that we were doing in the needs that we had to do for them, you know, including that once we were touching some of the outside walls and the likes of that, bring it up to today's code. We just couldn't bring it in under budget, on budget. So it was suggested, what if we made it a permanent facility? And so with additional funding, it has become their permanent facility. So they're now in the library space.
So that's not a feasibility study, that's done. Is that what you're saying?
That is correct.
That's great, all right.
I said it was, I think they moved in June, thereabouts, they moved in a little bit earlier.
Nice.
Into late spring. At the Pittsburgh facility, Police Academy, they had $50,000 for a study. And what they were looking to do is, with this study, is two things. One was the firing range, and whether or not they could put a roof over it, and what that expense would be. Was part of the issue was when they go down range after shooting to let their targets and the likes of that, is open to the air. So the problem being is it's not great because you have baffles that reflect your bullets down to the ground, so they don't leave the range. Part of that problem is casting good shadows. So when it snows or rains, it freezes and it becomes very slippery downrange. So it was kind of a safety thing. So they were investigating the cost of that. So that report is basically done also. The other part of the report was looking at their needs in the main building in West Cottage. A few years ago, we renovated, we just completed last spring, the East Cottage.
Yep.
And for the fire service up there. So now we know we have structural issues in the main building that they had over the years. Don't know who, we've done some investigating, we had sagging, but I can easily blame plumbers who like to cut joists to make the pipe run through and stuff like that. But there are multiple layers in and throughout, columns that have been removed, so we know we have a structural issue. A lot of it's still plaster lath, and that's cracking. It's not in tube wiring. It's some of the old plumbing that's still in there. It does have a sprinkler system, but that's, I'm not sure if it's original, but it is well dated. It should be updated. So they were looking at how best to use this. Do they need more space? If so, how much and what type of space? We need BGS. We're looking at the structural issues and everything else, and we're compiling sort of report on that to show that we need to fix the two buildings. But Police Academy might need this additional space. How does that fit? And we'll rearrange some of the classrooms to make them fit, things like that. So that report also will be coming out soon. Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets. The Eastern States Exhibit down in Springfield, Massachusetts, where we own the property, we own the building, along with the other New England states that are there. And when we were down there 2 years ago, we were trying to look at this process and what we need to do to the building, what the ag is looking for to do down there. They did hear when visiting other states and whatnot about the feel of Vermont when you walk into Vermont. When you walk into some of the buildings, it's their style and whatnot, but for some reason Vermont has better feel, better character. And so going forward, because the amount of people that come through this building, how to maintain that character, but still make it easier to bring different companies in and set up. In the past, there were companies that would come in and build their own stations. And so when they left, it's like, okay, then can you reuse it or stuff like that? So they're looking something to be more modular, but still keep that feel. Also to bring in a marketing expert on how better to, bring people in, how to better showcase things like that, so when you do walk through. Agency of Agriculture will have to tell you how many people come through on their, 3.5 weeks. They're down there. It is an impressive amount of number of people that are right through that floor. And going through it. The building has not had renovations to it, upkeep over the years. So it does need that as a part of funded in both of these, is from the major maintenance, the trim, the roof, windows, the flooring, plumbing, the likes of that. And then the rest of it is the sort of the marketing piece, how to redo the layout to get people in through faster. Because there are times when, like on Vermont Day, if you go down there, you're just shuffling. And it's hard to get from this one booth over here to the next booth over there. And have assemble them, people who could sort of go into their area, but then you're somewhat trapped in there trying to get the crowd back out. Or some people just want to just keep walking through. Department of Labor, this came about because in 2021, the chiller died. Just, and I want to say it was in mid-June, something like that, right? It was getting quite warm. Thankfully, there were people home with COVID, so working from home. So that helped out a little bit. We did bring in a temporary chiller. At the same time, the boilers are past their end of life. The building was constructed in '67 and was their original, both the chiller and the boilers. So what we're looking to do here is to change out the chillers and then the boilers. And what will happen is this summer, we're right now in the design phase. We're bringing a construction manager on so that we can pre-purchase the equipment and get that started. But it looks like this summer will be on a temporary chiller also, but this time we'll be back to me. Fix the boilers. If not, it'll be in the winter, we'll change the chiller, and the next spring, we'll do the boilers.
What building is that, Joe?
That's 5 Green Mountain Drive, over here to head towards the interstate. Once you cross the railroad tracks and go beyond the basketball tennis courts from up there high school, it's that Cement Drive. And it's that first granite building on the right-hand side.
It's right next to the school.
Yeah,
Yes.
I remember now. Yeah.
Liquor department never asked you for anything in the buildings.
I asked them a lot, they never did it. They have consolidated with lottery. And I know they're in lease space right now.
Yeah.
Where they are.
I don't think
They
they own it.
moved out of the office space down there. They're still using the warehouse.
Warehouse.
There was a study that was done a few years ago that looked at their future and their growth and their needs. And I don't know what they're.
Yeah.
I have not seen a request on it on that. It's incredible to see how much liquor there is, how much they go through. Seasonal is an issue, Christmas season, the holiday season. They brought in 3 roll-off containers to store extra product. Because the warehouse was capable of holding it during that holiday season.
How did they truck it? Or did those?
The distributor
Yeah.
delivers
Oh.
down and they offload, yeah, so they're buying directly from the distributor brings them up. Some of them are complete, full 18-wheeler, full, they will take
They
it.
have their own truck delivered through our.
That's what I was
Yeah,
wondering.
so
So
they-
so the state owns trucks.
Yeah, they own, so they'll sort out and they have a program of what they run around the state with and do their deliveries on a weekly basis.
How big are those trucks?
Just regular, not tractor trailer.
No, they're
Oh,
6-wheel
okay.
trucks.
Okay.
Because they only have so many stops, like they come to Burlington area, they got 1, 2, probably three of us on that truck. And then they go to other parts, because there's not that many agencies in the whole state. So they just
Right.
focus on, area.
It is interesting, go down, you would see 4 or 5 pallets high of alcohol. So
Yeah, well, we heard about him on the economic development.
Well, the other problem is there's so many new brands coming out all the time. It's like beer, look at the beers. I carry over 42 specialty beers now, just for off. It's crazy. I got door after door because everybody's opening a new brewery.
Right.
And they all want that new brewery or that new drink. And boy, I don't know, they're gonna, all these things gonna start turning because there's gonna be too many. And They still come out with new brands all the time. They got banana flavored beer, chocolate, you got everything you can think of these days.
That's a question about the fire, the rural fire protection. That's not you,
That is
right?
not us, that's goes directly to,
Try hydrant.
So it's a dry hydrant program that that seems to be the placeholder every year of what they have. And so, and you know what a dry hydrant is?
Yeah.
Took
Yeah.
me years to figure out what a dry hydrant was.
Right, from
Dry
the
hydrant.
truck, right?
What's that?
It's a pump.
Well, no, what it is, right.
Okay,
So they'll find a body of water. It's lots of times it's in a rural area where if they had a fire out there, it would just take a long time for them, there's no
Okay.
piping in the ground. But they're able to hook onto that hydrant, which goes directly into the pond or water source, and they're able to pull water from that.
okay, so,
It's not real, it's cold, it's the, without the chocolate on the ice.
so this pays for that,
It does. It pays
and the
for,
hydrant mechanism at the end, right?
well,
Like
there's just
connecting.
multiple sites.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly how that money's spent, but
Well, they're gonna keep
there's
doing it
multiple
out.
sites and it's to develop new
Yeah.
sites. I think more of anything is to develop new sites, to put them in there, because I think that after they're in there, whatever fire district it's in, I think that they're responsible to maintain them. So this is, I believe it is, and we'll have them in as well, to develop new sites and,
Okay, yeah, I'm pretty sure Vernon had one of those when I was there, but we don't ever help towns finance fire trucks, right?
No.
They are so expensive.
Right.
Did we ever do that to get out of that business?
No, never had.
All right,
we don't finance fire trucks, we don't finance schools.
right, and we didn't do schools. Fire trucks are almost as expensive as schools.
Yeah,
It's just hard for the towns to get them.
absolutely.
Thanks.
that's all the ones that BGS has their hands in.
Cool, thank you. Ready for a field trip?
Is there anything specific you